So we go from design and markets to photography, and we're talking to Andrew Quilty and Dean Sewell from Oculi Photography Collective. So you guys have come up with a really interesting model for working together to get your work out. Can you tell us how Oculi started, Dean?
I guess it started in 2000. We were a group of photographers, Australian photographers. Largely, we came out of the two media conglomerates, Fairfax and News Limited. And most of us are either divesting our interest in newspaper photography or winding back our time there. And we came together. It's a long and convoluted story, but essentially the concept really was driven by a designer, a guy called Bill Farmer, who came out of a design group in Sydney, Design Works, I think a pretty big design firm here. And I was actually showing him a book. He was trying to pitch my material for a corporate assignment. It fell through. But then he suggested to me that, are you interested in putting your work together and creating a website? I thought at the time, this is I think in 1999, I thought I was quite narcissistic really to have a website of my own. And he said, well, is there a bunch of you guys that are similar, work in the same sort of way? Would you consider producing a collective site? Because he said collective sites are really good. We said yes. I talked to a few other Australian photographers, and we agreed basically. So Oculi was formed basically from that. I guess there was quite a lot of disillusionment amongst the people that started it with our market, where we could actually run our work. Markets were sort of closing up; they were ceasing. And how we wanted to display our work, it was becoming more difficult to actually get our work published, particularly in the way that we want it to be seen, unedited, uninterrupted by third parties. So Oculi was a platform that we could create that took our work beyond the shores of Australia and to the international community.
So what's particularly, I guess, interesting is that in the past 10 years, the whole landscape for photography has really changed, and it's become increasingly difficult particularly for documentary photographers and reportage photographers to find support through magazines and a lot of the gallery spaces as well. It's a real challenge to find space to exhibit. So as the environment's changed and a lot of this has shifted online, it's interesting to note that you guys were among the first to actually band together and do that, but there are a number of other kind of photography collectives that have followed. I'm thinking particularly of things like Tiny Vices, which is based in New York, and it's all about these photographers who have a similar aesthetic or come from a similar place and decide to show their work together. But tell us what makes Oculi different, because you're not actually a photography agency in the way that, say, in that you represent each other's work commercially. There are other aims behind it, is that right?
That's right. I think that the most important thing is making a distinction between an agency and a collective. With an agency, there is there's an assumption that it is it's a profit-driven or commercial enterprise, where and that is what has kept Oculi alive, is the fact that we chose to go down a path that was a non-commercial path, that it was a non-profit sort of entity. We couldn't survive. There's no way if we chose to be an agency, that would have meant having an administrative sort of body that would underpin the group, and that would have driven us to, I guess, to have to to succeed, financially, and that's very difficult in this this time to do that. We've seen agencies come out here and have tried to establish in Australia. The market is not big enough here. They've collapsed after a year or so. Some like Network, for one, was a UK agency. They tried to establish in Australia. They couldn't cut it. We knew that we couldn't do it. We're up against the behemoths of like Getty and Corbis, those sorts of institutions, as well as like a plethora of image banks and libraries that are selling works for virtually nothing. You can buy images for $1 or $2 or whatever on iStock and all those sorts of things. So if we took a line of going down the path of becoming an agency, we'd be in direct competition with those people, and there's no way we could have survived. I mean, becoming a collective, per se, meant that we could actually, we weren't driven by profit. And in choosing not to be, we guaranteed that our artistic integrity was not in compromise in any way, in any other way.
So I guess rather than providing each other with financial support or with work, one of the reasons Oculi works is that you actually all challenge each other to produce work and to show work, which is sometimes the hardest part. Andrew, can you tell me about that process? So there's this understanding that you all have to submit new work to the site on a regular basis.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a newer member to the group, and coming in about 3 years ago to Oculi, as an individual photographer, I've really found the group aspect of the whole thing is very beneficial, both as a way of getting your work seen and out there, but also as a way of receiving constructive criticism from your peers and people that you respect. All the people within Oculi, the people that I admired and so on as I was getting into photography at the start. And so, yeah, I think the group is very beneficial in a number of ways. But we get together at least once a year, apart from to discuss sort of administrative matters, also to discuss new work and ideas. I think we usually tend not to. It's not a camera club so much as we're artists that just happen to use photography as a way of, as a vehicle to express our visions. So what we talk about is not so much cameras and tech talk and things, but the subjects that we're shooting and the subjects that we're interested in shooting, and things that matter, things that concern us, and things that we believe need to be covered, particularly within Australia. We feel that obligation to concentrate on what's happening in our own backyard. Yeah.
So in addition to providing this support, because it's interesting, you'd imagine you get a bunch of photographers in a room and they just nerd out about equipment, but you guys are really focused on the subjects, and because many of you have day jobs as news photographers and working for Fairfax and news as well, I guess it's really all about storytelling with Oculi. Yeah. So. Yes.
Is it a question?
No,
or a statement?
There you are.
Correct.
So that's Oculi.
That's our backyard. That's an AGM, I think.
That's the annual general meeting. So in addition to, I guess, moral support and inspiration, one of the things you guys have really practically been able to help each other with is producing this beautiful book, which you launched only a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
So now, the process, the time and the money that goes into making a book, I mean, it can be huge. It can be crushing for one person. But there's 10 of you, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
So between the 10 of you, you kind of broke that down into tasks and made it easier. How did you practically do that?